The morning sun filtered through the white blinds, casting golden streaks across the cluttered dining room table. On it sat a pile of puzzle books, flashcards, and a coffee mug that read "World's Smartest Grandpa." Sitting at the table, hunched slightly with a determined look in his eyes, was 72-year-old Walter Thompson. Ever since his retirement from teaching high school history in Minnesota, he had become obsessed with memory games, trivia challenges, and brain teasers. For Walter, staying mentally active wasn't just a hobby, it was a mission. After seeing several of his close friends struggle with memory loss and cognitive decline, he decided he wouldn't go down without a fight. So every morning without fail, he would challenge himself with various mental tasks, all in the hopes of keeping his mind razor-sharp. That morning, Walter's granddaughter, 23-year-old Emily, arrived at his house carrying a mysterious-looking folder. A recent graduate in cognitive psychology, Emily had been working with a research group developing new memory tests for early detection of cognitive decline. She thought it would be fun and enlightening to have Grandpa Walter try one of their newest experimental tests. "Grandpa, I have something for you," she said cheerfully as she dropped her purse on the kitchen chair and placed the folder in front of him. Walter looked up over the rim of his glasses. "Another one of your mind-bending quizzes? This one's different," she said, grinning. "We've been testing this on hundreds of people. It has 40 cognitive questions, riddles, memory challenges, logic problems. If you get 10 or more right, the research suggests your brain is still performing at a high level." Walter leaned back, stroking his chin. 10 out of 40, huh? Doesn't sound too bad. Don't get too confident. Most people your age don't score above 6. It's meant to be tough. Even younger folks struggle. Walter straightened his back. "Let's do it." Emily opened the folder, pulled out the first question, and began. The first few were riddles. What comes once in a minute, twice in a moment, but never in 1,000 years? Walter smiled and answered correctly. The letter M. The second was tougher. Pattern recognition challenge involving shapes. He took a bit longer but solved it with a little deduction. The third question asked him to remember a list of words, and then answer 3 minutes later which ones he recalled. It was more complex than it sounded. As the questions progressed, Emily watched Walter closely. His eyes narrowed, and he muttered softly to himself, tracing mental patterns and visualizing concepts. He stumbled on a few, particularly the spatial logic problems, but impressed her by solving abstract puzzles that stumped some of her fellow researchers. Halfway through, Emily handed him a challenge. Memorize a grid of numbers, then recreate it. Walter squinted, his lips moving as he repeated the numbers quietly, then reconstructed the grid nearly perfectly. When he got it right, he grinned, raising his eyebrows triumphantly. "Still got it," he said with a wink. By the time they reached question 35, Walter had visibly slowed down. His focus was still there, but the strain was showing. Emily debated whether to call it off, but he waved her off. "No way I'm stopping. You said 10 was the bar. I'm aiming higher." They reached the final question. It was a complex scenario involving people swapping seats around a table in multiple rounds, requiring him to determine who ended up where. Walter took a deep breath, grabbed a napkin, and began sketching out positions. 20 minutes later, he set the pen down. "Final answer," he said confidently. Emily checked the key. She broke into a grin. "You nailed it." Walter leaned back, arms crossed. "So, what's the verdict?" Emily flipped through the score sheet. "You got 14 out of 40. Walter raised his fist in triumph. 14. She smiled, almost in disbelief. "Grandpa, that's amazing. Most people in our control group barely hit 5. 14 puts you in the top 2% for your age." He chuckled. "You hear that, brain? You're still doing good." But for Walter, the score wasn't just a bragging right. It was validation. His morning routines, puzzles, and refusal to let his brain go to sleep had paid off. Yet, more than that, it brought something back he hadn't felt in years. A sense of challenge, of striving, of pushing limits even when everyone expects you to slow down. Later that afternoon, Walter sat on his porch sipping iced tea. Emily sat beside him, laptop open as she compiled her notes. "You should let us feature your results in the research paper," she said. "You're an anomaly." Walter raised an eyebrow. "Is that a compliment?" "In science, it is." A week later, Emily presented her findings in a university symposium. Walter's story caught the attention of several professors and researchers. They were intrigued, not just by his score, but by the habits he maintained to stay mentally agile. Walter was soon invited to participate in a long-term study on aging and cognition. Soon enough, local news picked up on the story. 72-year-old retiree ACE's cognitive test shocks researchers, read the headline. They interviewed Walter on camera as he casually solved puzzles live during the segment. His story went viral, and he was even invited to appear on a national morning show to talk about brain health and mental exercise in old age. What started as a personal challenge had become a national inspiration. When asked what his secret was, Walter always smiled and said, "Your brain's like a muscle. If you don't work it, it withers. But if you keep pushing it, reading, thinking, solving, it'll surprise you." As months passed, Walter became a speaker for senior wellness programs across the state. Assisted living centers began incorporating more cognitive activities into daily routines. Libraries began hosting brain sharpness workshops. Families began gifting puzzle books and memory games to their older relatives. All because one man proved that age doesn't mean decline. It just means you need to fight smarter. Emily eventually published a full research paper titled Cognitive Resilience in Late Life, The Case of Walter Thompson, and it received praise in psychology circles for highlighting how lifestyle choices affect brain aging more than just genetics or medical conditions. As for Walter, he never stopped challenging himself. By the next year, he was taking beginner courses in Spanish, learning to play the piano, and running his own YouTube channel where he taught memory tricks and logic puzzles to anyone who wanted to keep their mind sharp. The channel, Brain Fuel with Grandpa Walt, grew to over 100,000 subscribers, with comments pouring in from viewers of all ages thanking him for his inspiration. In the comments section of his most viral video, one where he solved 10 logic puzzles under 10 minutes, one viewer wrote, "If I can be even half as sharp at 72, I'll count myself lucky." Walter replied, "Don't wait until 72. Start now." He never saw aging as a curse. To him it was a challenge, a new frontier, a test he refused to fail. And in doing so, he proved that the mind, like the body, responds to care, to effort, and to love. And sometimes all it takes is scoring 10 out of 40 to remind you that your brain is still sharp, and always can be.